Okay.
Okay, I can see everything, it looks like. But you guys probably can't see the chat, can you?
I've got it up. So what they see on the screen is what my screen sees. So
Perfect.
they can see the chat, they can see you, they can see your screen share, everything's good. I love it when a plan comes together.
I do too.
All right, I'm gonna close the door here because they're doing some discussions out in the hallway and I don't want them to drown you out. And then we'll get going.
Sounds good.
Tabitha, if you want to go ahead and get started, I'm gonna go put a sign on the other door, let people know I moved back into the office just because that technology wasn't working.
Sounds good. Will do. So, hello, I am Tab Bartley. I am not a Purdue alumni, but I worked at Purdue after transitioning, not transferring, transitioning out of the Marine Corps. I served 8 years in the Marine Corps doing marketing and public affairs. And then first job after leaving was at Purdue University on the fundraising side of the house at Purdue for Life. I worked at the College of Pharmacy. And then I moved over and became the project manager for unit campaigns. And I now currently work for the Department of Agriculture's Agriculture Marketing Service in Washington, D.C. as a public affairs specialist. One of the jobs that I do is social media at AMS. So I handle all the social media. I did social media while I was in the Marine Corps. And today we are going to talk about LinkedIn. So how many of you are utilizing LinkedIn or have a LinkedIn profile set up?
Two out of four.
2 out of 4. Okay. So I want today to be super interactive. So any questions you have, feel free to let me know. But what we're going to go over today is why you should be using LinkedIn, how to set up your profile, how to grow your network, what to post, and then just some general LinkedIn best practices. LinkedIn is an amazing tool, and especially for transitioning service members and veterans. It is your living resume, but more than that, it's a way for you to create a network that can actually work for you and help you. So the first thing we're going to go over is kind of how to set up your profile. The first thing you need to know is the first thing they see, right? Which is your headshot. So you want to make sure that this right here is an image that is welcoming. So a smile, a smirk, something like that, right? You don't want your military type promotion photo of a scowl on your face, no smile. You want to look presentable, but you can dress for the career you're looking for. So I'm showing you a colleague. We are in agriculture, which agriculture isn't like this most dressed up, right? Like you don't have to wear a suit and tie because that doesn't make much sense for what we're doing. And so this is a great example of a photo that he's smiling, wearing, a nice shirt, and the background isn't distracting. If you have a photo of you in uniform, find any other photo, and use it. A profile with a professional photo gets 14 times more views than somebody who doesn't have a professional photo. And when we say professional photo, that really just means a photo of your face, headshot photo. Here is another example of not the greatest example, right? Because somebody's in the photo, but he's showing his polo and the organization that he is a part of. The next thing they see is your headline right here. So you want this to say what you are trying to do or what you do. So Tori, for example, is a DEIA practitioner and educator. Does everybody know what DEIA stands for? Okay, so that's a great example of making sure whatever you put here, somebody knows. Mine is a little more intricate, but I'm also not looking for a job right now. And so my profile is a little different. I don't follow all the advice or all the norms because I utilize my LinkedIn a little bit different, but you can tell that I do public affairs, I run a podcast, I'm a Marine, right? And some other things. There's kind of two ways of thoughts when it comes to these. People either put in like the 1 or 2 words, or they'll put in I am a DEIA practitioner and educator who helps make sure equity inclusion for organizations. It's just kind of what your personal preference is, and I'm just as simple as easier for me. The next thing that you'll see is like background photo, like what should you put here? Again, you can put what you do. So Tori has created this graphic in Canva. He is a DEIA leader, public policy practitioner, social work educator. This is really just like so people can know. I, however, have a little different approach. Purdue is a great place to be from, the alumni and the just connection that Boilermakers have with each other. A lot of times, you know, somebody from Purdue, you have an instant connection. For example, right when I started working at the Department of Agriculture, this is a massive agency, one of the you know, the biggest departments that we have. And I would say I was from Purdue. People would just name off other people who had gone to Purdue or had a connection to Purdue. It's a massive community. And so I utilize that on my profile to have a connection with people. Some things that you can put connection to Purdue University or what you do. So for example, if you are a pilot, you could put a photo of the plane you fly here, right? Or you could put a photo of an airfield or something like that. It's just, you really want to make it some sort of a connection or something that people can relate to and connect with. And then we are going to go down to the about section. So your about section, why does it matter? 30% of your profile visitors will not scroll through. And so that means you only have the first 3 or 4 lines in your profile to get somebody's attention. And now when we're looking at this, this is probably more those type of recruiters or jobs, people looking at this, getting an understanding of what you do. It should be extremely Barney style so that anybody knows what you do. As you see, Tori doesn't have a super long one because there's not really a reason to. Mine is way longer than Tori's, but attention grabber. I want to do good things, not great things, but good. But I'm also not looking for a job currently. And so I'm showing you some different profiles so you can kind of see where you are in either your job search or what you're using LinkedIn. Yes, you have a question.
So I'm not amazing with English, but it looks like the profile you're on now has 2 different tenses. Like it's talking about himself and then he says "my" in the next sentence. Like what way should that be phrased? Like which one's he using right and which one's wrong?
It really just needs to be consistent, right? So that's
Okay.
something you saw on his profile and you're like, so if you are going for like an editor job or a job where you're writing and then in your profile there's all these grammatical errors, that's something that somebody may be like, hey, right? And so there's not a right way or wrong way. You just want to make sure that it's as clean and edited and consistent as possible. But what matters is that you are telling people within 3 sentences what you do. Can they look at your about section and know what you do? So for right now, like I went to your guys' career fair and there were a few pilots who were looking for jobs, right? And so they're looking for specific jobs. So you would say here, like what aircraft you fly or like what you do. What are some of you guys studying? Because that'll help me too in like helping create that narrative. What fields are you guys going into?
So I'm in physics right now.
And what do you want to do with that?
Probably be an engineer or stay in the military, maybe intelligence.
Okay. So what you could put in your about section right now, because right now you're not looking for jobs, right? You are looking for people within that field to connect with, to learn more about what they're doing. And so what I would put in my about section then is that you are currently studying physics, what experience you have with that already, what you want to potentially do with it, because you're using LinkedIn right now to make connections. So tailor your about section to what you're trying to achieve from it. Does that make sense?
Yes,
As where
it
if you were
does.
looking for a career, you would obviously want it very like, I can already do this job and I have this much experience. but that's not what you're looking for. So you want to put whatever you're looking for as the first priority in your about section.
Thank you.
And I don't want anybody to overthink their profile in regards to the most important thing is getting as much of it filled out as possible, because the more you have filled out on your profile, the more it will give you connections, the more it will, people will see your profile. So you really just want to get the baseline in there, and then you can start to ask for advice or help, but start getting something in there. When it comes to your experience, you want to, and I'm going to go to mine, you want to make sure that you have your experience listed and that you explain then what you do, but it's not a resume. So this is supposed to be more sentence format, more explaining, and you can now even add photos into it. So that's kind of cool, right? Maybe not, but it's pretty simple. Anything you edit, you just find the edit button and you can add position, you can add career break, or you can go in and edit. One thing I do want to point out, when you edit your content, I'm trying to find it. Sorry, I have this blocking my screen. There will be an option right
notify
here,
network.
notify your network.
Turn that off.
While you guys are doing this, turn it off so that
Please,
you
for the love of
can,
God.
so that you can make as many edits as you want and your whole network isn't getting 20 million notifications. Now, when would you turn it on? If you get a new position that you want people to know about, you can turn it on, but it's going to notify your entire network that you have this new position. So I suggest keeping it as off, and then when you want to change it, go in and turn it on, wait about 2 hours before you make that like adjustment, because it takes a while sometimes for LinkedIn to get those updates, and then post it. Is it going to do anything for you? Honestly, not really. I'm going to talk later more about what type of content to post on LinkedIn, and there's a better way to kind of brag about yourself, honestly. Are there any, since most of you don't have a profile, I don't want to go too deep into this, but I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but does anybody have questions when it comes to the experience section?
What
Now,
else is everybody studying to? You only got one answer and there's 5 people in the room. What else is everybody studying?
Kinesiology.
Kinesiology.
Biomedical engineering.
American Studies.
American Studies, good. That's an easier one. I don't know all this stupid smart stuff, but we'll get into how we can search people and make connections with your guys' stuff. But here is
You got
where
a
you would
question?
put, yes.
He's been waiting patiently.
Sorry, I can't see you.
Hey, it's Kay Tab. Hey, so back on the headline.
Yes, going back.
So I'm actually sitting in this class for Mike. So we both just graduated college in April. I'm cool with my job, but he's looking for a new job. So you said that on the headline, it just depends on what you put there as to whether you're looking for a job or not. So if someone was looking for like a business management job, would he just put like his management experience there? Because like on Tori's profile, he didn't really have, again, if he's not, I mean, like where he says DEIA practitioner and educator, does Mike just put like business manager, or I don't?
Perfect. So this is a great question, because this is what I want to show you. So you're not sure maybe what that job title is or what other people are using. So what I do is, for something like that, let's say we'll put in business manager and we'll search it on LinkedIn. And then you can click on jobs, you can click on people. There's a lot of different things you can do. But what I tend to do is I would click on people, and then I'm going to kind of look here. Now, if I know location is really helpful, so we'll say Indiana, because I would assume that's where you're looking for a job.
Correct.
So I would do business manager in Indiana. And this applies for anybody who's like looking for a job, but they don't know what to put as the job title. Then what you can do is look at individuals who have kind of that business manager or they've popped up on LinkedIn, because now you can see what recruiters are searching. If they search business manager, what is popping up?
Yep.
And
Okay.
is there something that, is it like construction business manager? Is it just general business manager? And you can start to look at these profiles, and especially if you see somebody who you're connected to or somebody you follow, and see, and forewarning, on LinkedIn, when you could click on people's profiles, it tells them that that you are viewing their profile. So don't, forewarning of, if you leave somebody's profile and then you go back on 5 minutes later, they'll get a ton of notifications. It's not a big deal. It's just a forewarning. So that people know that. But so let's see, Brian, he's from IU. How ironic. That's funny. Business manager, operations professional, process improvement enthusiast. That's kind of cool. Data analyst. So what I would do is I would look at this individual, I would look at what they have, kind of look at connections, and then I would look at their content and their following. And okay, they don't have a ton. Maybe I need to find somebody who has a little more, or maybe from that, I now know that like I want to do construction business management. So that's kind of how I would suggest kind of having an idea for those like more broad terms. There are things like program manager people are looking for, right? Like those type of positions. But if you don't know what job titles, that can kind of help you what job titles. You can also search on job posting boards to get a better idea of what companies are labeling that job.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's kind of how I would look to decide. But then also, me personally, I will forever have Marine on there, right? Because the Marine Corps, Marines will help Marines like all
That's what
day
we do.
long, all day long. And
All
so
day long.
I have that in my headline. If you don't want connection with the military anymore or what have you, I completely understand and get it. However, it does help you connect with people because it helps people find you. And it'll also, I'll show you guys later when I show you how to grow your network, it'll also help you find people. So hopefully that was helpful. But that's kind of my suggestion of figuring out what to put there. If you're not looking for a job, then you really just want it to be something that's like catchy and in your realm, right? Or who you're looking for or what you're looking for. Like if you're just learning how to fly, maybe it's like training pilot or something of that nature. I'm not pretending to know other people's job titles by any means, but that's kind of how you can search for those. And so going back to experience, so for experience, this is like the careers and the jobs you've actually had. You only want to go back about like 10 years. You can add more, but again, it's only going to show you such limited. What I do is I go and adjust this. Like when I am applying for a job, I go and adjust this and make sure that like the experience I have is prominent to whatever job I'm looking for, things that they're looking for in that job so that they don't have to search. So if I am applying for being a photojournalist, then I'm gonna like move all my social media management and all of these other things and put my numbers and stats for what I did when it comes to photojournalism. The other thing you want to make sure is that when you put something here that you tag the organization, because like things like this that don't look finished, they hurt your profile. So if somebody doesn't have like Marine Corps, you want to put the Marine Corps, don't put each individual unit for like every unit that you've worked for. Instead, do like Army, do Marine Corps. I say that and I have Marine Corps recruiting, but that's Marine Corps recruiting is actually active on there. So that's why I did that. But don't try to do every unit, because if this is empty, it looks really bad and it kind of hinders your profile. There is a section for education. Put all of your schools, again, for me, the Defense Information School and the military is widely known, especially in the federal side and the DoD side, and it's an international school. You guys will have college, so that's not a hindrance to you, but I don't have a degree. And so I really had to make sure that like my schoolhouse for the military was here. But you don't need to put like Staff NCOIC Academy. Civilians and other people don't know what that is. It doesn't really hold a lot. Now, if it was like a specialty school, like the warfighting school that the Marine Corps has, you can put that because they have, they have their own webpage, they have, or LinkedIn page, they have all of that, but you don't have to put in every little thing by any means. And then here is a really good section, volunteering, and why this is so important. How many of you are studying and getting a degree in the same job you did in the military?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Exactly. So how can you get experience in it? Through volunteering. And again, I'm not going to pretend to know like half of what you guys do, but can anybody give me an example of something they do that's volunteering on campus that has to do with their degree or what they're studying?
Well, they've got a few, they're like kind of jobs, I guess, as sports aid. There's sports aids for like the football team and for Mackey. They pay you $7.25 an hour, but it's essentially just an internship.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
so I would, depending on how full then your experience is, that's where like you could kind of judge of, do I want to fill that in volunteering or do I want to put that in an experience? Depending on how much you have, that could go either or, in my personal opinion. And the volunteering is really where you can show kind of those other things. I do a lot in different veteran organizations, and I've really used that to my advantage on LinkedIn to be able to get some additional skill sets and experiences. And then also like supervisory type stuff. I do a lot more overseeing of people in my volunteer organizations than I do in my job, because I'm in a career field that tends to have more of a like pod structure than a like command, like chain of command where multiple people in it. We still operate very much like a news team where there's like 12 of us and we just have 2 supervisors, if that makes sense. So to show that type of supervisory stuff, I use my volunteer experience. So anything you do, people really want to see volunteering. Yes.
So I actually have like been a part of a lot of volunteer groups. I'm sure a lot of other people have as well. Would you recommend putting like the majority of them down or just the ones that are like important? Because I don't
I
want to
would-
like make it like, I don't want to like overflow it, but at the same time, if that looks better.
So you can, what I would look at is what volunteer did you do that you can write something about that you feel has an impact, and or you see this arrow right here, you can organize what's at the top. So there's really no reason not to add it, again, as long as they have a page that you can tag. And then you can put what you did with that organization, as simple as like 1 sentence, 2 sentence, then go ahead and put it in here because you can change the priority of where they fit.
So you're saying changing the priority, you don't think it's important to do like the one that's most recent?
You can, but like if you're doing multiple volunteering at the same time. So for me, like
Okay.
I'm in a podcast, I'm in multiple veteran organizations, and I put the ones that I feel are kind of highest on my priority, or I think kind of have the biggest appeal. And I put those at the top. Since I'm guessing you probably volunteer with more than just one currently. That's what I
There's
did.
2 things that having that volunteer stuff on your profile can do for you. One, the stuff like Tab's talking about that is the top, those skimmers and most people are gonna skim your profile, they're not gonna read everything and open
Right.
things up. They're only gonna see those 1 or 2 volunteer things that you do if they're just skimming. So that's where you put the priority of having it up top, so that that's what they'll see if they're just perusing your profile quickly and casually.
Okay.
But having it in there, even though it might not be visible on that scan, associates you with that organization and it creates a connection. So now
Okay.
if somebody's searching for the Veterans of Foreign Wars, you'll pop up as being a
Okay.
part of, being associated with it because you have a connection. You volunteered with that organization. So volunteering with organizations that are, I'm not saying that you shouldn't volunteer with whoever you want to, but volunteering with organizations that are reputable and have their own LinkedIn account that you can tag and connect with has more impact on LinkedIn because other people who volunteer there can see like, oh, I see that you volunteer at, United Way. I also volunteer at United Way, and now we have something in common to strike up a conversation.
So, when I put it in, does it automatically tag them or do I need to specifically do that?
She'll show
So
you.
when you type them here, so for example, Red Cross popped up. So when you start typing, they will pop up. Sometimes you need to search their LinkedIn page first to see how they name their page because LinkedIn can be a little like, man, you didn't type the whole thing the right way.
Right.
So sometimes you have to search on LinkedIn to find their page, make sure they have one, and then put it in here. You
And as soon as you click on
can,
that link, it's there.
I'm trying to think of something that doesn't, like I have one that does not have, let me exit that out.
Yeah, because you're making me think that I've also worked in like really small situations or small groups where I'm volunteering, where they probably don't have like a LinkedIn or a tag.
You can
And
still put it on there.
Yeah, and I was about to say, see, I still have one on here that they don't either, but it was important for me to put it on
Okay.
here because it's a veterans council in the city I live in. And so somebody can look at that and know what that is, but they just don't have a LinkedIn page. So if it's something that you feel you want to be connected to and it has value, just make sure that it's not like every single one of your things is empty.
Right.
And if it is, find the ones that aren't. And I would suggest if you have a ton that are empty like this, don't put them, just pick the few that you feel have the most value or the most impact
Okay.
on your page. That way it doesn't negatively affect you in the algorithm. LinkedIn, like one cool thing about LinkedIn is they're constantly changing their algorithm. They do not publicize their algorithm the way other platforms. So there's not as much like tricking the system because they're forever changing it. The beauty of that is LinkedIn is a professional network, but it also is like, I'll get into more of like when we talk about what to post, like it's very much like your chance to tell your story and to show what you can do and to show some personality, but in a little, I think, safer of a way, maybe is the right way to say it. Because like I talk about a lot of things on LinkedIn that I don't think that people think that they can talk about, kind of. And for me, I can honestly say where I am today, every single veteran organization I'm involved in, the current position I have, the things I've done since I've transitioned out of the Marine Corps have all been directly tied to the connections I've made on LinkedIn. I've ran for Indiana State Senate. I have been on multiple podcasts. I started a veteran organization for women veterans. I've done a lot of things, and I can tie every single thing back to a connection I made on LinkedIn just by telling my story. So there is power here. Power here, yeah. Just want to show you how to basically set up your profile. Skills, go ahead and fill them out, but for most people, skills is where you are going to like demonstrate your skills. You want to pay attention to, again, like what are you looking for? What's something you bring of value to an organization, or what are jobs you're looking at? What are skills within them that you constantly see? So for me, public affairs, a lot of public affairs specialists out there, they are not trained in photography. They're not trained in photojournalism as well. Coming from the military, we're trained in that. So that was something that was really important for me to highlight because it makes me stand out amongst other public affairs specialists. The endorsements, do not stress about these endorsements though. Anybody can give anybody endorsements. And what does that mean? They do not hold hardly any value. Now, I'm not telling you to not try and get endorsements or to not give other people endorsements, but please do not stress them because anybody can give anybody endorsements. And I get endorsements from people I don't even know, and it drives me crazy because I'm like, how can you say I'm good at photojournalism if you've never seen a photo I have taken or read an article? But that's just a personal pet peeve. But you go into, oops, you're going to do the same thing when you are adding them. If it comes up, things will just like pop up here, but really try and look at, again, what jobs you were looking for, things that are trending now. Like when I set up my profile, like social media communications was not one. And looking at buzzword type stuff, like strategy is a super crazy like buzzword when it comes to stuff. So anything that you can say that you're a marketing strategist or social media strategist is going to help you. But again, just kind of fill some in that are relevant to you. Don't spend or feel like you have to spend too much time on that. Does that make sense? Yes.
So it seems like they're very specific. Would something like just putting something like leadership be too general?
Yeah.
No.
Way too general.
Not
You
necessarily,
can,
not necessarily though, like it depends on what you're using to kind of, to what you're going for, right? Like literally what Tab said earlier about the whole, like your skills should reflect what you're seeing in patterns for like job postings for your desired career field. And if you're using them as a guide and then you say, okay, well, I have that skill or I don't have this skill. And then that gives you two things. One, you have the opportunity to correct your deficiency, right? So if you're looking at job postings for physicists and everybody wants, you know, the expert pocket protector, employment skill, whatever, you don't have the expert pocket protector employment skill. That's something that you can go take a class on or volunteer or do something to build out that skill that builds your, you know, you become a better candidate. Your candidacy for those positions increases because you're fixing that deficiency and providing something towards their ask, right? Their job postings all say they want that skill. You went out and got it. So what you put in there will largely depend on what you're trying to do. I mean, really.
and I
So
would just be more specific. So when it comes to leadership and the jobs you're looking at, are we talking, again, when you type those skills or skills you think, LinkedIn is going to help give you some suggestions too.
Oh,
And
okay.
so look at those. But again, this is kind of like the other section where you can bump what you want. You can set the priority. So add the skills that are relevant. Things that are really irrelevant nowadays is like Microsoft, unless you're looking for, you're in IT, right? And you're like supposed to be a Microsoft expert. But if it's just very general, like I have a general skill in it, that's not a skill you want to put or have priority. Because if you say like, let's see, Microsoft Office, like that's pretty self-explanatory nowadays, right? But if you have, and they're not even showing very many, but like Microsoft Publisher is one that if you are going for graphic design, Publisher is one. Does that make sense? So when you look in here, you have this general, but you want to be more specific and look at like what you're looking for so that when they see it, they instantly click to, yeah, that's what we're looking for. As where like Microsoft Office, sure, you can put it in there, you can put PowerPoint, but is that going to really help you get the job? Maybe, right? Maybe, but you would be able to tell in that job posting if it would, or what career field you're going into.
Thank you.
Maybe if I can exit. Okay. What you can do when it comes to these skills, something you can do is you make new connections with people you know, and you see them on LinkedIn. You can endorse them. You can ask for endorsements. Like that's a good like conversation starter or whatever, but please don't just like random people you don't know endorse them for things. It's just very, very strange. But if you know somebody, feel free to endorse them. And I don't know why my page is showing you all of them now. Hold on, let me get out. Recommendations.
Right.
This, the section under skills, recommendations. This is a great one and a tool I have used multiple times when I was applying for jobs in the civilian sector that I wasn't sure if my military would translate enough, or I didn't think that maybe there was enough on my resume that said enough of what I did, but I had done it and I couldn't think of a better way to put it in there. I used recommendations and I specifically asked like my commanding officer, I sent him the job posting was like, hey, I'm applying for this job. Is there any way you can give me a recommendation on LinkedIn that kind of covers this aspect of the job or this thing of the job, so it can be very visible on here. So you can give recommendations and you can receive them. If you ask somebody to give a recommendation, really make sure that you ask them like what you were looking for, right? Give them some guidelines so that their recommendation can have value for you and for your profile. This is going to be like the first thing people see. It's a great way also to like kind of reconnect with people maybe, in the military who have gone, like this was like a few years after my commanding officer had left the command that I had reached back out to him and was like, hey sir, would you be willing to put a recommendation on my LinkedIn page? Because it was a little, I thought, easier than asking for like a recommendation letter. It was a little less of an ask, and he was currently deployed at that time. And I had seen him posting on LinkedIn, so I was like, well, I can ask for this. So this is a great tool to boost your profile and to get them, when you're looking for a job, or if you're looking for a job that you feel like maybe your resume is missing, or maybe you just don't feel like your profile says enough about it. This is a way to get that credibility. You can do it through people who they don't have to work with you. This is again where the volunteering, you can ask somebody who you volunteered with what you've done for their organization, or even peer recommendations. I would try to get at least like one or two, but again, don't feel like you have to like fill your page up with recommendations. Honors and awards. In the military community, there's a lot of back and forth about whether you put, your medals, what you've received. Civilians don't understand what these medals mean, but military does. I am of the sense of like, I earned it, I'm going to put it here. And in my resume, I have it a little more civilianized. My LinkedIn and my LinkedIn community is very, very heavy based in the military and the veteran. And so that's why I have left mine. But you can also kind of civilianize it. You can put into details the descriptions of why you earned it. And so I would definitely, this is one thing where I'm going to tell you kind of do as I say, not as I do, because mine isn't all the way filled out. I've just kind of done it, but it's kind of a back and forth of people's opinions on it. So that's the super basic of how to set up a profile. And we only have 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure we talk about some other things. So are there any other questions about setting up your profile before we switch to the next topic? Yes.
Does it matter like how many followers, or I see also says like connections that you have?
Yes. So my profile is a little different. My profile is set up as a influencer profile, and it allows me to do a few things. So you see those hashtags under my profile. It allows me to utilize hashtags that are seen and recognized. It allows me to go live on LinkedIn. I would not suggest you guys, if you're starting on LinkedIn, to do that profile yet, because it has people following you instead of connecting with you, and you want to connect with people first. The reason why I have my profile this way is because I do LinkedIn lives and I do some other things that analytically I just want to track more, because I have a podcast page and some other stuff on mine. But these profiles are people who have like kind of set it up in a little different of a way to allow them to do some other things.
What does
But-
it mean by, what does it mean by when it says connections?
That's how many connections I have. So like
That's how many LinkedIn friends
on
you got.
Facebook. Yeah, it's like friends on Facebook. Followers
So
are
it's
just
similar
people
to
who follow
followers.
your content, but you're not
Well, no.
connected.
Followers if you follow somebody on Facebook or on LinkedIn, for example, and they do like Tab does where they put out content, maybe they publish a newsletter, maybe they do a podcast, but they're putting out stuff. That's all you'll see is their updated content that goes out. Somebody who's a connection, you'll see updates on their statuses. You'll see there's more to it than that. So a follower, like you can follow public accounts, like you could go follow Bradley Cooper's account, right?
Okay,
But you're not necessarily connected to Bradley Cooper. So the connection is kind of the deeper thing. The follower is, this is somebody that I pay attention to. Maybe I listen to their podcast. Maybe I subscribe to their newsletter, whatever.
okay.
That's what the followers are. So she has connections and that who are truly connected to her in some way. And then she has followers who digest her content.
And you can do both. You can be labeled as
Mhm.
both, right? But yeah, I personally would not advise that because I didn't switch my profile to this until way after I had had a good amount of connections. And don't overly focus on the connections. You can have 10,000 followers and it doesn't mean that your network is going to do anything for you. If you are not engaging and interacting with them, it's no real help to you, right? And so when you're looking at this, it is really like you are building relationships. That's the approach you need to take. You're not just like going through and following and requesting everybody and anybody to be connected with you because you may not want to see their content. Honestly, you may not want to be connected to them. They may not be of any help to you. Now, I'll talk about how to grow your network. That way you guys kind of like know how to connect with people and search people. And then I want to go over kind of what to post. And so you have the beautiful thing about the military is you have an easy connection to people. So put in Purdue Marines and Indiana, and you can see people, you can search their companies. So if there is a company you know you want to work for, and you are trying to find somebody who can like maybe get you an in or tell you about how that job, you can search Purdue Marines and then they're going to pop up. And then you can additionally search like maybe you can additionally search like what current company they're working with. So somebody who's currently at Purdue, who's a Marine, show me their results. And all these people are going to pop up and you can kind of look and see who may be a good connection, who may not. Something I had searched earlier was Marine Corps pilots who are at Purdue University. And that doesn't show a lot. Sometimes you have
Cool.
to like move it. That wasn't the search I did earlier. But the point is that you can search people with what careers you're doing or careers you want that were veterans or Marine Corps, whatever branch of service, to see who you could potentially connect with. This secondary, you have 3 choices of connections. It's first, second, and third plus. You're really looking for, oops, did not mean to click on him. You're really looking first and foremost for those first person contacts. Those are people who have the closest connection to you. And so you can, when you search, you can do that.
Can you explain more what that means?
Your first connections are going to be somebody who has the closest to what you were looking for or the most amount of touch points to you. So maybe it's
Okay.
somebody who was also in the Marine Corps, also at Purdue, and is also a pilot. Or you have
Or
a
the-
lot of the same connections.
Or they're already connected to you. A lot of your number one connections are already people you're connected with.
Yes. So you really want to focus on those first and second connections because those are going to be the people that, like, as you see all these people pop up that I'm already connected to. But let's say, what are you guys studying again? What's a job that you are looking for potentially, or what would be like a job title?
Research and development engineer, regulatory specialist.
So we put that in. And then we want people, because we want to connect with people, right? And then you can put in by location. So maybe you guys don't want to stay in Indiana and you want to move to Washington, D.C. Or you want to know whether or not you want to move to Washington, D.C. or wherever. You can put that in, and then people are going to pop up. Now, there's a lot of thirds because obviously that has nothing to do with my job. But say Jack is a first, and then you see that he click on Jack. He's in Sterling, Virginia. Maybe it says he was in the Army. That's where you can decide to maybe follow him to see if you want to stay connected, or maybe you want to see what he's posting. And he's posting nothing. Thanks, Jack.
So
Um,
how would you connect versus follow?
So let me show you a better example.
Yeah,
It's like requesting.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So
under the more.
the more, if somebody has follow,
Uh-huh.
and this is why you don't want to change your profile to like the influencer or whatever LinkedIn is calling it,
Right,
because now
okay.
instead of connecting, it says follow them. But you want connections, right? Like at your point, you're building connections. But when you click on the more, there'll be the connect. And then when you connect with somebody, it'll ask you to add a note. If you don't know this person and you have not interacted with them at all, you want to put a note of why you want to connect with them. Not
Okay.
hi,
Otherwise, you're just a stranger cold calling.
yeah. And not hi, how's your day? That's just weird. And especially if you're a male messaging a female, I will tell you I get so many messages like that and I don't connect and I don't acknowledge them. Don't know what you want. I'm not wasting my time.
Can it be-
Instead, you could put something like, oh, I saw that you studied engineering at Purdue University and you now work at USDA, and that's where I would like to work, or I'd like to know more about working there, or I'm considering moving to DC, or I see that you were in the Army too. Make it short and sweet, but give some of the connections to them. And then, like, what are you looking for? Are you just looking to talk further about their experience? Are you looking to get more knowledge on where they live, or do you just want to know more about them?
Okay.
Let them know
So-
basically, but it doesn't need to be like a massive paragraph. The exception to that, or I will say the exception to that is when you start following people or connecting with people and you start interacting on posts, there's people that I tend to interact on people's posts before I ask them to connect with me, so that by the time I ask to connect, we've already had dialogue so many times on like a post like this where I comment. Comments hold the most power on LinkedIn, not your personal post, not messaging people, not all of these things. Commenting and interacting with other people's content and your own content is what will have you showing up the most. So you want to be interactive. You want to engage people. When you're trying to grow your network, engagement is going to be your biggest tool in expanding that network and other people seeing your content. It's, are you interacting with other people's content? And that's where you can start following different organizations, different people, and just see what they post and interact with it.
So some of that's the developing your profile and having those things in there that link matter. Because as you
Yes.
reach out to some of those new connections, those are the things that you're gonna talk about in that message.
Right.
I see that we both volunteered at United Way. I see that we both studied at Purdue. I see we both studied in the Army, whatever. Those personal, like, how do you and I have anything to talk about? That's important in those connection requests or
Okay.
those initial messages,
So
particularly the veteran and military piece, because the veterans and military have a higher tendency to help each other out.
Yes.
And, you know, extend that hand and an olive branch to try to help you out versus most other people. So being connected to the military is huge when it comes to building a network and making new connections.
It really is. And it's, when you get onto LinkedIn, the thing is you really control your feed. So if you're getting stuff in your feed that it's like, I don't want to see that, then over here you have the option of, I don't want to see this. I completely want to unfollow this person. You're still connected, but you don't want it in your feed. I use this all the time because I want to control my feed, because my feed is what I see and it's what I'm interacting with. And I don't want to waste my time interacting with random companies or things that just is not relevant to me. And so I really utilize this to help, because when you get new connections, you'll start seeing their content more than some other content because you've just connected with them. LinkedIn tries to show you their content, but it may not be what you want. You may want to stay connected to that person, right? But it may just not be something that you want in your feed all the time. Or maybe it's something you don't feel comfortable enough yet interacting with, or there's a lot of reasons, but you control your feed in regards to that. The other thing is you get the option of top or recent post. I toggle between these two depending on, like, if I feel like I've only seen the same thing, I'll go to recent to see if there's something else that I can see than that I haven't seen for me. I do want to talk quickly about, because we have like 9 minutes and I'm happy to stay over, but I want to give you guys your time. What to post on LinkedIn and like how to post. When you post and are engaged on LinkedIn, it just does so much for you. There is over a 280% boost in reach and your engagement when you use personal storytelling on LinkedIn. What does that mean for you? What type of content does that mean? You guys right now are veterans, you're going through Purdue, you've gone through this path that is a limited amount of people who have experienced it, but people want to know how that is. Like, how is it navigating campus, right? Especially if you have a disability. Is that something you're comfortable talking about? Purdue is not the most disability friendly campus there is out there. Sorry, Purdue. It's just the fact. It's not, right? And so challenges that you've overcome is a great way to tell a personal story of, if you're comfortable, okay? I'm not telling you to overshare anything you're not comfortable sharing by any means. But for me, I have multiple organ prolapse issues, disabilities, and it means that I can't walk certain distances. I need access to certain things. And so I talk about that a lot when it comes to work, when it comes to all sorts of things. Now, I don't like overly share everything about my life, right? But there's parts of it that people can relate to. And the authenticity of telling your story is what is getting the most on LinkedIn. Sometimes it is literally as simple as applying, like, what's a paperwork or a process maybe that you have to apply for as a student veteran that's just a headache that like you've figured out like a way to do it easier, or even a reminder of this time of year we have to do this. Those are the type of stuff that you can post on your LinkedIn, as well as like, what are you learning in school? Maybe there's some lab lesson, or you guys said that you stuff with the football team, right?
Not
Football
yet, but
team.
soon.
When you do, take a selfie at the stadium. Take a selfie of an injury. And I know that sounds so like ridiculous. Why am I taking selfies? LinkedIn's algorithm prefers selfies. And I did not understand this. I take photos. I have beautiful photos that I post, not of me, of like actual things, right? That tell the story of like what I'm doing. And they don't get as much views as a selfie. And honestly, it pissed me off. I was like, I don't get this. This is really frustrating. And I had to look at it from a different way. The reason, at least that I have chosen to look at it, is instead of thinking it as a selfie, it's you're putting a face to the content you're putting out so that now people can see the face behind that content. And so when you take selfies of what you're doing, which Purdue's a beautiful campus, it could be any photo of you like walking around campus, right? It can be a good hair day. Take a photo, take a selfie on campus, save it, and use it later for a post. I just want to show you kind of some of the things that you can post, just so you have an idea. I post constantly about my time in service, but I tailor it sometimes not, to my job and what I'm doing. So public affairs is something that I do, and I did in the Marine Corps. One of the things that I did was I trained Marines, media relations, and how to get in front of a camera and to do interviews. And so like I had a photo pop up on, like, you know how Google tells you, like, shows you old photos. I had this photo popped up and I was like, oh great, I can use this photo for a LinkedIn post today. talking about how I trained Marines to get in front of live camera. Awesome. Great. I ran for Indiana State Senate and a photo popped up this time of year. And so I posted about never thinking that I would run for office, but look at what LinkedIn did for me. I work for the federal government, and every Friday I post about Federal Hire Friday, where I tell my personal story of how I got into the federal government. Again, my feed is super like veteran related, but then I also talk about my current job, which is agriculture, when I get to go out and cover different stories. And so you're really just trying to tell your story when it comes to post. You don't have to overthink things. You don't have to overly share by any means. That's just where I'm comfortable at. So I do that. But you can also share, this is your living resume, things that you are doing now that will help you for your job. So again, when you're finally doing the stuff with the Purdue athletes, maybe it's something you've learned where how to wrap an ankle, right? Or how to do whatever. Make a LinkedIn post about that, showing that you have this knowledge, showing and sharing that knowledge, and use some sort of relevant-ish selfie to help promote it, or any photo. But you definitely, want an image to grab people. Videos are great on LinkedIn, and there's now closed captioning. So you can do videos as well. Those get a lot of views. We have 3 minutes left, so I'm trying to make sure we get everything that I haven't talked about.
So some of the stuff that you're doing on campus is the stuff that like you can do, like being here. You could take a selfie of yourself sitting there on the couch, or a recent selfie and be like, just sat in on the LinkedIn workshop with Purdue Veteran Success Center, tag our account, presented by Tab, tag her account, really appreciate the insights, looking forward to developing my network, and and post it. And that's a LinkedIn post. And then you've tagged our account as the Veteran Success Center, you've tagged her account. And so people who are associated with those accounts will see your post, and you're off and running. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. We did some posts about the 9/11 memorial run we did in the stadium, or it was pictures of us running up and down the stairs with the stadium in the background. Like, honored to be out here remembering those who lost their lives on that fateful day. Post. You can do all kinds of stuff.
And I want to show something else before, as we're talking about posting, because I know that it can seem overwhelming. LinkedIn now, even on your mobile, allows you to schedule your post. So you see right here is a schedule for later. So you can create a post, type your post, schedule it for whenever. The AI on LinkedIn sucks. If you're going to use AI, use a different platform, just so you know. The AI on LinkedIn is not good. Use a different one. But you do your post, and you pick when to schedule it, and you schedule it. And so you can pre-schedule these posts, or you can, if you think of something, but it's maybe like midnight and you're like, maybe I shouldn't post at midnight. Maybe I need to post like at 9 a.m. You can do that. But this is a way that you can kind of think of some post, get it scheduled, and you're not taking much time or much thought in it. I will advise you that your post fate is kind of like determined in the first 60 minutes, like 40% of the post. So if you are posting, that's when you want to be interacting with other people's content. So I personally try to post between 8 to 9:30 a.m. And then whatever time I'm posting, I will be on LinkedIn for at least 30 minutes. So 15 minutes before I post, I'll interact with other people's posts. And then 15 minutes after I post, I interact with anybody who interacts with my post and other people's posts, because it helps boost your content in your post, which is then going to help you gain connections, right? That's the main goal, is that people start seeing your stuff so you can start connecting to them. Are there any questions? I feel like I went over things pretty fast and really only like covered the surface of like the super basic surface. And I will put my link to my account in here. If you want to connect with me or have me review your profile, connect with me. I'd be happy to review your profile. And then in the chat, I'm also going to give you some veteran suggestions of people, veterans specifically, who are on LinkedIn and are doing great things and talking about a variety of things and a variety of ways to utilize LinkedIn. And I want to make sure if you have any questions that I answer them.
What do you got, Chris?
I have a question. How often do you go on your LinkedIn?
For me, that's not a fair question because social media is my job. So I manage multiple LinkedIns. But realistically, you could go on LinkedIn if you wanted just like once a day. If you wanted to go on at 9 a.m. for like 30 minutes, it's really what are you doing in that 30 minutes? I would suggest you consciously making at least like 10 connections, comment on at least, 10 people's posts. If you're comfortable, make a post of your own. It's really like being on there and doing the things and kind of like I said, timing it right. If you're going to do a post, then stay on and interact with other people's posts because it'll help boost your post. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So for me, before I got in this role, and I was in the middle of my transition to getting out of the military, I was on LinkedIn about once a week. I set aside about a 2-hour block of time where I was going to get on to LinkedIn specifically as a social media. And I was going to do research into companies. I was going to look for network opportunities, people that I could try to connect with, to ask for informational interview stuff. So like as I'm looking at what industry I want to get into, I'm looking at those companies to see if there's anybody in there I have connection points with that I could use to get myself into a 30-minute informational interview to talk to them, ask them some questions. How did you get there? How did, whatever, what recommendations you have, that, and be able to actually have like a no kidding phone call conversation with somebody. But I was also doing the same thing Tab was talking about. I'd post my content about what was going on with me and my military transition that week. I finally did this. I'm looking forward to that. Seeing some struggles here, blah, 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 blah. I was looking for other people making comments on their posts, same kind of stuff she's talking about. But for me, the way I was in my schedule, I only had about that 2-hour block once per week that I could manage to sit and dedicate to that. Now that I'm here, I'm on LinkedIn 3 times a day for about 45 minutes at a shot because I'm managing our LinkedIn for the Veteran Success Center. I'm connecting with companies and employers to try to get them connected to you. So I'm doing different things, but kind of depends on your purpose.
And LinkedIn loves consistency. So it's better to be like, I'm only going on once a week on this day and continually doing that than to be crazy sporadic algorithm wise. But you do what you can, right? When you can. It's not like the end of the world either which way. Like it's really not. If you guys are okay with me taking 3 more minutes, something I wanted to show you that I didn't, because when I went to the career fair, hardly anybody knew what USA Jobs was. USA
Thank
Jobs
you for coming
is,
to that, by the way.
Yes, USA Jobs is where majority of federal jobs are posted. So if you are looking for a job and you're like, maybe I want to work in the federal sector, like DoD jobs are posted here, but non-DoD jobs as well. One example I have is there were a lot of pilots at that career fair, and they had no idea that there was any federal positions as pilots outside of DoD. And so you can put a keyword in here. You can put location, but I would suggest like just keyword because you guys are just looking for connections right now of that job or career field. And then you'll see postings of it, right? Airplane pilot, aircraft pilot, blah, blah, blah. But what I really want you to focus on is right here. It shows you, okay, this is a job that's in the Department of Agriculture, Forest Service. So now go back onto LinkedIn and you can search pilot, if I could spell, USDA. And it is now going to show you people who literally do that job in that department. And you can connect with them and say, I'm a veteran. I'm looking at potentially one day, maybe learning about USDA. Can you tell me more about like your experience there, so on and so forth? The more connections like that you do now where you're low pressure to no pressure, the more successful you're going to be when you're looking for that career. Now's the time, in my opinion, to do this and make these connections because you're not stressing, right? Like depending on where you are, if you're a senior, maybe you are stressing. But if you are earlier on, then you have the time to like be able to like facilitate and make these connections and to learn, and the door just like opens way wider. Hopefully that was helpful.
And you'd be surprised how many times a connection from a while back becomes relevant all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, like, oh yeah, I was applying for this job and look, that person that I used to be connected, or I am connected with that used to be at company A is now actually in company B, and that's the company I'm going for, and I can call them up and get maybe some help getting through the application and hiring process to get at least a foot in the door. Be more than one of 1,000 resumes sitting in an AI pile.
Because you can, and I don't want to take up all your time, but there's still so much to show you guys. You can go to a company page and you can see all the people on LinkedIn that like work there and where they work.
Yep.
And so you can see if you're already connected to them. You can see if you're not. So that's another way. If you have a company that you think you're interested in, or you know for certain you're interested in, follow their page as well, and then see who's an employee there and see who you connect to.
Yeah, what employees they have that went to Purdue, what employees they have that are military veterans, what employees they
Yes.
have use those common connection points to build the bridge to establish that network.
Are there any other questions? Because I've gone over and I feel bad.
Anybody? Okay,
Oh.
no questions here.
Feel free to connect with me if you'd like me. Well, connect with me if you want to connect with me, but then feel free to message me if you'd like me to review your profile and do some one-on-one on your personal profile or help you with anything else on LinkedIn. I am happy to assist.
Thanks so much, Tab.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tab.
you.
Thank you for letting me sit in.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Have a good
All
evening.
right, we're gonna sign off.
Bye.
Everybody have a great evening.